On the northern edge of a quiet town stood an old, abandoned house that everyone called the Burned House. A decade ago, the house's owner mysteriously set himself on fire, and the building was almost completely destroyed. Now, only crumbling walls, charred furniture, and blackened photographs remained. Locals whispered that at night, screams and soft whispers could be heard from inside. Children claimed that sometimes flames would ignite by themselves, and a shadowy figure seemed to watch anyone who dared approach. The house had become a source of fear and curiosity. One night, a group of 5 teenagers decided to explore it, daring each other to uncover the truth. They wondered whether the tales were just legends or whether the house truly held something sinister. The town's older residents warned them against it, describing strange events, shadows moving on their own, and sudden chills when standing nearby. This section sets up the story's setting, the eerie history of the house, and the suspenseful atmosphere. Readers are drawn into a sense of dread and anticipation, feeling the chilling fear that surrounds the abandoned property. The tension builds as we prepare to follow the teenagers inside, establishing a foundation for the supernatural events to come. Night had fallen, and the 5 teenagers stood at the house's front door, their hearts pounding. Each tried to appear brave, but every creak of the old wooden floorboards made their stomachs tighten. They pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. The interior was blackened and ruined. Burned furniture lay scattered, and charred photographs lined the walls. But what terrified them most was the faint smoke that seemed to curl upward from objects long burned, as if the house were breathing. One teen picked up a photograph and noticed that the eyes of the figure inside seemed to move, following him. Whispers echoed softly, and the air felt heavy and oppressive. Shadows twisted across the walls, forming human-like shapes that seemed to reach for them. The flickering of broken lights created the illusion that the house was alive. Every step forward intensified the fear, and the teenagers felt watched and trapped. This outline details their initial exploration, establishing tension, supernatural hints, and the psychological terror of realizing they are not alone. As the teens moved further inside, the fire that had long died suddenly ignited again. But this fire was not ordinary. It was cold, black, and emitted smoke without heat. The flames seemed almost sentient, stretching and twisting into human shapes. The teenagers screamed, but the sound was strangely muted, absorbed by the house itself. One teen turned around and saw his own reflection trapped in the black flames, burning yet strangely alive. The fire engulfed rooms, blocking escape routes. Walls seemed to pulse, and the flames reached toward the intruders, as if the house were protecting itself. The supernatural fire had a mind of its own. It was selective, targeting those who dared look behind. This outline emphasizes the mysterious and threatening nature of the fire, showing the teens' increasing terror and the house's malevolent power. Panic spread among the teens as they tried to flee, but the fire spread unnaturally fast, blocking every path. Shadows emerged from the ashes, whispering and reaching for them. One teen fell to the floor, pulled upward by the cold flames. The others tried to save him, but the fire seemed to hold them back. Rooms twisted in impossible ways, hallways appearing longer than they should, staircases bending unnaturally. Every movement brought more fear, and the teenagers realized the house itself was alive, hungry, waiting to claim them. The sense of hopelessness is crushing. Every exit leads back into danger. This outline explores the peak of the horror, detailing how the supernatural fire and the house itself trap and terrorize the teens. By morning, townspeople approached the house, but there were no teenagers to be found. Only the burned ruins and the cold black flames, still flickering silently. Some claimed to see shadowy figures moving inside, as if the house were alive, waiting for new victims every night. Legends warn that if you look back, the fire will claim you too. The house stands as a silent predator, a reminder that some places hold power beyond understanding. This ending leaves the story open-ended and haunting, cementing the house as a supernatural, malevolent force that continues to consume souls. The reader is left with lingering fear and suspense, imagining that the horror may return at any moment. A woman wandered through an old, mysterious market and purchased a handcrafted candle. The vendor whispered that the candle was special, but she dismissed it as a marketing trick. Her life was lonely, especially during cold winter nights, and she hoped for warmth and comfort. Once home, she placed the candle on a table in her dimly lit living room. As night fell, she lit it quietly, whispering a small wish for warmth and peace. At first, the flame appeared ordinary, flickering gently in the darkness. But soon, the light began to change color, glowing an unnatural reddish-orange. Shadows in the room twisted oddly, and the atmosphere became heavier and oppressive. This outline establishes the setting, the woman's backstory, and the initial sense of normalcy before the supernatural begins. It creates anticipation and prepares the reader for the candle's mysterious and terrifying powers. As the candle burned, its flame grew unnaturally tall and started forming shapes. Initially, these shapes resembled human figures, faces of friends and family, but they were twisted, screaming silently. Shadows flickered on the walls, moving independently of any light source. The woman began to hear faint whispers, sometimes calling her name. A chill ran down her spine, and fear slowly replaced curiosity. She attempted to blow out the candle, but the flame leapt back to life as if resisting her. The room felt alive, as though the candle had a consciousness. This outline focuses on the first supernatural signs: the animated flame, the shadows, and the psychological terror. The reader starts feeling the growing danger alongside the protagonist. As the night deepened, the candle's flame became increasingly lifelike. Screaming faces appeared in the fire, reaching out as though trying to grab her. The woman realized the flame could move independently, following her every step. She looked into a nearby mirror and saw her reflection engulfed in the fiery shapes, even though her physical body was still in the room. The flame was cold, almost sentient, and seemed aware of her presence. She felt an invisible force trapping her in the room, as if the candle had claimed ownership over her soul. This outline describes the escalation of the supernatural phenomena, emphasizing the candle's malevolent power and the woman's growing terror. The candle's flame had become more than just fire. It was a living entity, surrounding the woman, whispering her name, and controlling her movements. Every attempt to escape or extinguish it failed. It felt as though she was caught in a web, and the flame could read her fear. Her heart raced, and she screamed, but the fire's presence grew stronger. The shadows now moved like hands, stretching to touch her. This outline focuses on her complete vulnerability and the candle's predatory nature, turning it into a spiritual and psychological trap. By morning, neighbors noticed smoke rising from her house, but inside, no one was there. The candle still burned, its flame unchanged, and human shapes moved within it. Whispers called out names, perhaps the next victim. People claim that the candle seeks its next target by name, and anyone who notices it too closely risks being consumed by the fire. The story ends with a haunting, unresolved feeling, leaving the candle as an eternal, supernatural predator. This conclusion emphasizes lingering fear and suspense, with an open-ended threat that can strike again. A group of 5 friends decided to go camping deep inside a forest located on the northern outskirts of their town. This forest had a dark reputation. Many people claimed that those who wandered too far inside never returned. Local legends spoke of strange disappearances, mysterious lights, and unexplainable whispers at night. The friends were unaware of these stories or dismissed them as myths, thinking it would be fun to spend a night in the wilderness. They set up their tents near a small clearing and gathered firewood to light a small campfire. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the forest grew colder and eerily quiet. Birds had stopped singing, and even the wind seemed unnaturally still. Shadows from the tall, dense trees stretched long and dark across the ground, and every small noise, like the crackle of twigs, sounded amplified in the silence. The friends tried to laugh off their unease, joking and teasing one another, but a creeping sense of fear slowly began to settle in. Some felt eyes watching them, though no one was there. The fire they lit seemed ordinary at first, but the forest's atmosphere hinted at something beyond the natural, a presence that could feel their fear. This outline establishes the setting, introduces the characters, and prepares the reader for the supernatural events to come. The forest itself becomes a character, vast, dark, and alive. The tension builds gradually, creating anticipation for the mysterious and terrifying incidents that will soon unfold, setting a chilling foundation for the horror story. As night fell and darkness enveloped the forest, the friends sat around their small campfire. At first, the flames flickered normally, casting gentle orange light over their faces and the surrounding trees. But soon, the fire began to behave strangely. The flames started growing taller and twisting into unnatural shapes. At first, the shapes appeared to resemble human figures, blurred and flickering, as if the faces of people who had gone missing in the forest decades ago were emerging from the fire. The friends stared in disbelief. One of them swore he saw a shadow moving among the trees, following their every movement. A cold breeze passed through the clearing, though the air was still moments before. When someone tried to throw more wood on the fire to control it, the flames leapt forward, almost as if resisting, and seemed to stretch toward them. Whispers could now be heard faintly above the crackling of the fire, though no one spoke. The friends' nerves frayed, and the playful joking that had begun the evening faded into tense silence. Every flicker of light and movement became a source of fear. The forest appeared to respond to their presence, the trees casting ominous shadows that merged with the fire's human-like shapes. This outline emphasizes the first supernatural signs: the animated fire, ghostly shapes, shadows, and psychological terror. It shows the friends' growing awareness that something unnatural is happening, increasing suspense and preparing the reader for the escalation of the horror. As the night deepened, the fire began to grow unnaturally large and intense. The flames twisted and turned, forming figures that moved independently of the wood and kindling. Human faces appeared within the fire, screaming silently, their eyes dark and empty. The friends tried to step back, but the flames seemed to follow them, spreading across the clearing faster than any normal fire could. One friend pointed toward the trees and noticed shadowy figures moving among the branches, synchronized with the fire's shapes, as if the forest itself was alive and controlling the flames. Panic set in as the friends realized that the fire was no longer ordinary. It had a will of its own. Attempting to escape, they discovered that every path they chose seemed blocked by dense shadows and smoke. The heatless flames stretched unnaturally, climbing up trees and encroaching on their tents without burning the surrounding greenery. It was as if the fire fed on their fear rather than fuel, growing stronger with every heartbeat. Each friend felt an invisible force pushing and pulling them, as though the flames were testing their strength and resolve. The forest seemed to hum with power, the fire acting as its weapon, hunting them silently but deliberately. This outline describes the escalation of danger, the supernatural fire's power, its control over the environment, and the characters' increasing terror. The fire is no longer just a natural element. It is an entity, a predator feeding on fear, establishing the story's climax in tension and suspense. By midnight, the forest and fire had merged into a living nightmare. The flames were no longer confined to the small clearing. They stretched across the forest floor, wrapping around trees, and creating shifting, writhing shapes. The human-like figures in the flames became more distinct. Some appeared to reach toward the campers with twisted, clawed hands, while others whispered their names. Panic overtook the group as they realized they were trapped. Every direction seemed blocked by the fire's unnatural spread and the shadows of the forest. One camper fell to the ground, paralyzed by fear, while the fire crept closer, cold yet scorching in its presence. The others tried to grab him, but the shadows pushed them back, and the flames seemed to anticipate their movements. The forest's ambient noises, the wind, the leaves, even distant animal calls, seemed distorted, almost orchestrated by the fire itself. Each step the friends took only drew them deeper into the fire's web. The flames seemed to pulse in response to their terror, growing taller and brighter with each scream. The fire was no longer just a threat. It was a predator, using fear as a weapon to corral them. The friends' desperate attempts to escape heightened the horror, making every action perilous. The forest around them became a labyrinth, the fire guiding their movements, ensuring they could not flee. This outline focuses on the apex of the supernatural terror, the fire and forest acting in tandem to hunt the campers, showing complete control over the environment and escalating the psychological and physical fear of the characters. By dawn, the forest appeared calm again, but the aftermath of the night was horrifying. Local villagers who passed near the forest noticed smoke curling from the deepest areas, but no campers were ever found. The small clearing where the fire had raged was strangely untouched by natural damage. The trees remained unburned, the grass intact, but the fire still flickered in odd places, moving like living shapes. Those who dared to peek saw humanoid shadows moving within the flames, calling out names faintly, as if searching for new victims. The forest, it seemed, had absorbed the campers' fear, adding their presence to its growing supernatural power. Legends began to spread. The forest feeds on the terror of those who enter, and the fire is not a natural phenomenon, but a hunting entity that waits for wanderers. Anyone who notices the flames too closely risks being lured deeper into the forest, where the fire will claim them silently. The story closes on an unresolved, chilling note. The campers vanished without a trace, and the fire remains alive, ever hungry, a permanent predator in the darkness of the forest. This ending reinforces the open-ended supernatural horror, leaving the reader with lingering fear and the unsettling idea that the forest and its fire are eternal hunters.